Alrighty. So, Titus, good to see you, man.
Yeah, happy to be here.
So you're calling in from your spot in Indiana, right?
Yep, we are right on the southern border of Indiana, almost exit zero, right on the Ohio River.
Got it. So for those of you who don't know Titus, Titus is a friend of mine who is as geeky and potentially even more geeky about how to put items in boxes and what those boxes should look like and how big they should be and all that kind of stuff, everything related to dimensional data, weights, dimensions and weights of items, dimensions and weights of boxes, carrier rates, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's a pleasure for me to have Titus here today. And we're gonna go into the geeky stuff eventually, but I would love if you could sort of like start us off with a long story short of the Titus story. Like, what's your background and how did you end up what you're doing right now and what are sort of your long-term goals?
Yeah, oh, I love that question. So I won't go all the way back to my first warehouse job at 15, but fast forward and out of college, I started working with a company called Bulletproof. They were uh, very venture backed. I got lucky. I was in before that started, so I was employee seven. And end up raising 100 and some $1 million, launching into Walmart, Target, Sam's Club, all the big retailers. And I got to live that firsthand from the early days. And I was there 6 years, and the company changes a lot during that. And one day you go from seven to 260. And I had told my family one night, I said, I think I've gone as far as I can go here. I get on LinkedIn and there's a job posting for a company called PLS that's now IQpack, looking for someone to lead up their supply chain analytics. I look and it's in the same town I live in. I was like, oh, this is meant to be. I got on there shortly after, and during that time at Bulletproof, I had knew there was a better way to do a lot of the supply chain problems we solve today. And my thing, learning coming in, I set my mission out to change supply chain. It's my audacious goal. How do we change supply chain forever with the technology we're bringing? It's a North Star goal and it's day by day progress, but that's the central mission of what we do.
Awesome. And so you mentioned IQpack, right? And so now, from my understanding, you guys are going through what externally appears some sort of a rebrand or maybe some sort of a branching out of a sub entity. I know one part of it is more focused on like the actual packaging, the other part is more focused on tech. Can you kind of like draw some delineation? What's the difference between IQ Pack and PackChain so that the people here who don't know you kind of understand? It seems like you wear multiple hats here.
Yeah, so when I started, like I said, at PLS, and it quickly became IQpack after that. The business was started by our owner, John. Actually, I think he's on this call, John Moore, who had
Hi,
spent
John.
has spent 30 years in packaging and working with distribution, selling packaging, and there was a lot of accounts there that we continued to work. We don't do a lot of packaging sales anymore. And when I came in, John wanted to build software that solved a lot of the same problems I was looking to solve. So it worked great. And the product was called PackChain that I've been there since the first line of code we've developed, now going on 5.5 years. And PackChain really is the software component of the company, where IQpack is really the services. So if we come in and bring dimensioning hardware and setup and or any type of system you're working with on the IQpack side, which is our consultative implementation side, and then PackChain is the software program.
Awesome. And so on your website, and now we're gonna start going into like the geeky stuff. You have, I think if I open up your website actually, pack chain, there's like 5 steps to this like the domain that you're operating in, right? There's some levels of like item mastery there, there's some levels of cartonization, there, but then you're also dipping your toes into like the transportation and like audits and stuff like that. So the five pillars that you have on IQpack. Oh, did you guys change your website?
Yeah,
One, two,
we
three.
just went through a rebuild of the site, and we've really enhanced the site and the messaging and the branding throughout the site to just be more straightforward.
Got it. So the five pillars of pack chain that you described to me like, 6 months ago or so.
Mhm.
Perfect item master, cartonization, perfect manifest, rate shopping, freight audit. So
Right.
so like can can you kind of talk us through like each of these pillars and how they kind of connect into like this mission of the overarching mission of
Yeah.
pack?
Yeah, so that's kind of it's a good segue because how we started and we met each other was, I saw that what you were doing with cartonization, enjoyed your content, and our central mission. One of the things I learned in my early days in supply chain was nobody knew the size and weight of the items they're shipping. Nobody knew the box sizes, the weights, the dimensions, any of that. I didn't know it when I was working in it. I had made up bad dimensions just to get a 3PL operational, and saw the havoc that unwound. And I started to think, okay, if I fix this one thing, what are the cascading effects? And okay, now I've got this perfect data in my system. Well, I ought to be able to fit everything into the right box. So we always start on a place to and see, hey, do they have good dimensions? If the answer is no, that's where we almost exclusively advise to land with us, that we go on a mission from there to make sure you have the right equipment, software, to capture that good dimensions and keep them accurate forever with new products coming in. And then we usually stop at cartonization around the side of, hey, we can tell you what size boxes and bags that you need in your operation. So now we've collected this information. Let's at least get you in the proper size packaging items. So that's where we what we do with cartonization now, where you're coming in is if they need that every single order, they want it to stamp which box, they want to tell you the packing orientation, that side of it. We're usually leaving that to places, other places or WMS side, but we're not getting into anything much outside of let's find out what's proper packaging you need. So then once we've collected all that good information, we've got that hardware that we've used to capture DIMMs. That hardware is multi-purpose. So then we start to set up dimensioning on your outbound. So we know, if you're in an on-demand machine, we work with that company to make sure those dimensions are provided to your carriers. If you're using a dimensioner, we're taking images of every single package that you ship, and we're manifesting that to your chosen carriers of choice. Companies like Global Glove they chose to go into rate shopping, where they wanted us to send that information to FedEx, UPS, do a rate call on it, and then choose the cheapest of the two. So now that we've captured all this information, how do we snowball it into becoming more powerful for us? And Global Glove was able to have their transportation contract with UPS lowered. Now they're up to 10 times because it just happened again last week. They've battled back and forth so much because they can change their carriers they don't have to do anything to change their carriers. It just spits out the cheapest label for them. And they go into UPS, FedEx, seems like once a month they're changing who's cheapest. And we need to update our site with this case study. They're up to over $250,000 saved since the beginning of the year. And they're only shipping out of one operation just by implementing that rate shopping. And then lastly, once we've collected that, we make sure that the data is accurate. We've collected all this good information on the dimensioning on the outbound. We match that up to your carrier invoices and we give you a discrepancy report for all the errors that are caused in shipping. UPS, FedEx have as much trouble measuring items as customers do. They get bad rates, but they fine for items that they've measured differently than you, and you have that mechanized data to go back to them and say, no, this is all I owe. So
Hmm.
that's our that's our pillars right there. That's the areas we focus on. We're going to be adding another one with a checkway. We've been implementing checkway systems using the same hardware. So you get a picture of your box, it weighs it, says if it's in tolerance because you've got that good item master data to kick it off for an audit. If it's not, then we audit it and take images of that. So we'll be adding that soon, but that we keep working down that path of what we can do with perfect dimensional data.
Got it. No, and that makes perfect sense. Thank you so much for clarifying this. Um I remember, I saw you, I reached out to you on LinkedIn maybe like 9 months ago or so, because I saw your post about cartonization. And I was like, oh no, another competitor, right? And then I actually, immediately jumped on a call with you and realized, wow, this guy is super nice. And actually, it's way less of a competitor than I originally thought, right? Like obviously, you guys have some cartonization software, but it's like you guys do way more. You guys do way more than just cartonization. So like whereas all we do is just cartonization. So we go like super, super into like detail, the 3D Tetris, nesting, stacking, yada, yada, orientations. And so whereas, whereas what you guys, sorry, what?
Oh, I think somebody just went off mute accident.
Ah, okay, yeah. And so it actually what we both realized and kind of what we're working on, right, is well, you guys are super good in all these other pillars. And you guys also have something here, and you definitely have demand, customer demand for this. And then we all we do is cartonization, and we're like super good at cartonization, right? So like why not maybe there's ways like Perseus can plug into PackChain somehow, some way. And that's sort of been a topic of conversation ever since. And it's been like wonderful working with you. And I one of the things that I like appreciate about people like you is that you actually you're a tech guy, you write code, right? But you actually spend a lot of time with your customers in their warehouses, hanging out with the packers, hanging out with the pickers, hanging out with the people who actually like experience the problems of bad data, bad cartonization all the time. And so I'm curious, like how often are you in a warehouse versus like in front of a computer at your home office?
Yeah, I was chuckling because I was there yesterday at a 3PL that's in Louisville here, and I'll be back tomorrow.
Nice.
It's it's probably 60/40, 60 on the computer, 40%, in the field. Um, and I'm trying to lower that number, but it'll never be under 20%. Because the truth is closest to the work and
Yeah.
I have to do the job. I have to experience it to know what changes to make. I have to listen to the feedback I'm getting. Once I start working with, executive vice president or general manager for that feedback, I'm in a telephone game. I need
Dude,
it.
they have no idea.
They're not out there doing it enough, and that's something that's in our ethos in the company that we'll always spend time on the floor. When we do implementations, that global glove one, I put in the timeline we were going to be there 4 days, and I ended up being there 9 days, and I didn't charge the customer more, and it worked out, because we were going to leave when it was perfect. And that's how we always execute on these jobs, and it starts on the floor, and it always will, and it always has. That's a big pet peeve of mine in the industry of people not getting close to the work. It's why I believe anybody on a new job should spend time in customer service. You're working for a brand.
Absolutely.
How do I'm hired as the COO. What better use of my time than spending a month in customer service, knowing what's exactly going on with my customer? So that's how we do it at PackChain. We pride ourselves on, we were just having a call earlier, pride ourselves on our operational support will be second to none. If there's a problem with our equipment or our software, that's meaning they're not shipping boxes, and that's cash burn. So it's definitely important to be on the floor.
Oh yeah. It's also what I found is that my background is, I used to work at Amazon. It's like a West Coast software company, right? And so like a lot of these like tech bros like me that were raised in this sort of like Silicon Valley philosophy, build something once and sell it a gazillion times, right? Which works very well when you're like shipping mobile apps or like web
Right.
apps that are like Airbnb or stuff or whatnot. Once you go into the warehouse, actually, I don't know about you, but I've never seen two warehouses that are the same, you know. And so,
Never.
like, so it's like even if they do kind of the same, even if they ship the same stuff and they're owned by the same company and are close to each other geographically, chances are like the operations are completely different, right? They might be on the same WMS too, right? But like their workflows, the layout of the warehouse is different. And so there's always a level of customization that goes into these software projects
Yeah.
that you just need to account for. And being there on the ground, I found personally, is the biggest sort of insurance that the project is going to be successful.
I can't tell you how many times I've scoped a job. I didn't go on site. We've got the job, and I get there on the floor to execute, and I've missed some weird workaround in their flow that completely breaks the way I had designed it. And we did something similar with companies using license plate numbers, and we built everything to be on license plate number per box. And the company ended up using one license plate number for every order. And we had to go back on real time on the site and rebuild it to work that flow for them. But I'm thankful we had the flexibility to be able to build that way, while I'm there on site, execute, test, continue to build on it. But yeah, it's in software, especially in supply chain. Our head of engineering, well, you've met Eric. He's done
Yeah.
some incredible projects with AI and 3D modeling and all sorts of industries before he came here 5 years ago. And he's always shocked how archaic supply chain systems are, and how, you know, EDI is still a standard, from 1972, I think it is. And uh,
Yes.
you've got to be able to work with the old and the new efficiently. And there's no better place than finding out what's happening right there in front of you. Oh, you're muted.
All right. My computer completely left me hanging here. Cool. You can hear me now?
Yep.
So I'm curious if you have like a crazy story. It's similar to me. Let me show you something, okay? So when I first built cartonization. I built cartonization sort of, I closed in a customer who very much knew what their problem was. They knew they needed cartonization. They knew they needed like a price-aware cartonization that's 3D aware, price aware, very, very sophisticated, right? So I built this from scratch for these guys. And I um now the Packers I never had to like explain to them what the thing is that it's actually doing, right? Because they knew they put stuff in boxes every day. It's like
Yeah.
if you give them instructions what to do, they will do it, right? And you don't have to do this like these fancy 3D models that we have, right? Like they're cool, they're fun to look at and everything, but like the Packer doesn't really care. But
Right.
I struggled, I went to trade shows and I'd have my banners where I would like explain we do cartonization, we save money on shipping, and people are like looking at it and they're like, "So what is cartonization again?" And then, one day I just hacked together these like 3D visuals, right? And then I start showing it to people, and the executives love it, right? They're like, "Oh, that makes complete sense. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, cool. Show me more. Like, let's book a call. Like, let's try this out. Like, here's my data simulated, yada yada." Like, without this 3D visual, I would never get this executive sort of interested, right? But then, once it's deployed, right? And we have like examples of this, where we have this embedded in like working, customer solutions, and like the Packers, they don't care, right? It's here, the visuals are here for them to look at. They're like maybe 5%. Like when it's like very exotic and they don't know how to pack it, they might look at it. But the Packers don't care that much. But the executives love this. So like I'm curious, like in your journey, are there like features that like you were kind of like from like a business development point of view, you were forced to build, but then actually, those features helped you get people interested and like accelerate sales cycles, but actually weren't end up being used that much by the actual Packers.
Yeah, I was thinking as you were going through that, one recently happened to me on the checkway I talked about. I passionately did not. This was a customer that is kind of on that legacy side of our business, and they're a 3PL, and their customer wanted a checkway, and this is a manufacturing
So
company.
what's a check way?
A checkway, it hits the scale and it says this box is 20 pounds and it was supposed to weigh 27 pounds. Audited, something's wrong. No, yeah, yes, yeah, similar to that. You set it on there, it pops up on the screen, it says pass or fail. If it fails, it goes for corrective action.
Got it. So this is what like FedEx and UPS would have in their inbound, no? To like, and then they bill you based on that.
Yeah, or they'll do size too, but a lot of warehouses use, or most all warehouses use these. It's a very rudimentary way to see if we've packed everything. And this company
Yes.
had a fatal flaw in their needing a checkway, or wanting a checkway, because they're a manufacturing company and they ship glues and silicone
You
and
need perfect item master data for this to work, no?
Exactly. And when you're manufacturing, you might underfill, overfill. And if you set a tolerance too wide, it kicks everything or it passes everything and there's a problem. You set it too tight, it fails everything and you're auditing things that don't need checked. So I really was just backed into the corner and had to build this for them. And I built it with a dimensioner, a camera-based dimensioner, and it would send the data into our system and we'd send a message back saying pass or fail. We get these images, and the customer falls in love with these images. Everybody I'm showing to the dashboard for that is wanting, oh, I want to get a picture of every single one of them because when these 3PLs get messages of, hey, you short shipped this, and they can go get that image and say, nope, it's here, it is in the box. They're falling in love with it. And I begrudgingly built it, but my mindset was, I'm going to build something that's going to be useful at some level. And these images are helpful. They provide great corrective action. It tells you if it's a weight's missing or dimensions missing. And this customer just last week wants to put 7 more cameras in at other spots in their facility. So that's something we built recently that I wasn't that excited about. That the images don't help me from a data side, but they do tell a good story. And
Wait, so
happy we've got it.
so you're venturing into like computer vision space too? You
No,
got
I'm
that from
using
us?
no, I'm using V measure almost exclusively on these cameras and for the checkway side because their system works really well with that. So they have a product called a V audit that's a pretty inexpensive camera that I can hook a scale to and get 4K images of every single. I don't know if it's even on their website yet. Um,
No, it's cutting edge, yeah.
yeah,
It's only, it's
but
only
it's
for
not.
Titus.
Yeah, well, I've used their stuff to build these kind of devices. Very much like their hardware and software to work together. They got a great team over there, and we have a native integration with their systems, and we do a lot of customization with vMeasure to
Nice.
fit the needs of the customer. And that's why I like them because they're the most flexible. So that's something that's came up that's not that powerful from a data standpoint, but it is powerful to get our product in front of people.
Nice. Nice. That actually nicely segues into like the another thing I wanted to chat with you about. Um, so you don't manufacture, you have this service called Perfect Item Master,
Yep.
right? Which I think someone would be, someone reading this could think, oh wow, actually, so you guys have some sort of a Cubiscan competitor or whatever, right? But that is not actually what you do. Instead,
Correct.
right, you actually have hardware provided by other people like Cubiscans, V-measures, and whatnot.
Yep.
And then what you actually provide is the service of taking that hardware and run around the warehouse and measure everything and make sure everything's measured and everything's perfect, right? And so, and I definitely oversimplified here. So like, can you kind of like talk more about this specific offering of yours?
Yeah, so on the dimensioning front, that's exactly right. I love when I get on calls, and I just picked up a account recently, and I get on the call and they have like six Cubiscan 325s. So I don't have to sell the hardware. I can use what they've already got in their warehouse. I'm not asking them to spend $200,000. Somebody else has already trailblazed that for me. And what you run into is I've got the dimensions, now what? So that's what my services will provide. Things like that you need. A Cubiscan you scan, it doesn't allow you to log nestable, fragile, stackable, those rules that you need for your cartonization. We enable that. So that Cubiscan, all I'm asking the dimensioners to do is feed me the data. And then from there, we cleanse it and make it perfect to go up into your WMS to enable cartonization applications to enable all this other items. So I always call the dimensioners like a hammer in my toolbox that you have
Right.
to have one, but I'm not that picky about the brands. I mean, some I am if they're not compatible with what we need to do. A lot of these dimensioning companies don't have mature APIs. They We also don't think it's advisable to scan directly into your WMS. I just was on a call with Cubiscan, and their biggest problem they have is people scan the wrong barcode. They scan an each, and it's actually a case, and they feed you case dimensions for an each. Now your cartonization doesn't work. So we're
Might
that.
actually introduce the problem.
It very much can if you've got usually putting temps on these scanning. So we're that
So how
middle.
do you fix that? So you have
Yeah.
a software layer?
Yeah, we're a software layer between that. When you scan it, it's going to pop up on your screen that you profile on an iPad that says, this is the scan, this is the match, this is an each, this is nestable, fragile. They just hit the button like a little ordering kiosk and hit submit. And then
Got
once they hit submit, it goes into a staging area for management to approve it up into production, into your warehouse
got
management
it.
system.
So essentially you have this sort of um, this change log
Yes.
functionality. Like, hey, are these the dims that we actually want, right? That does anything smell, right? And
Well, we put in their rules. Like I always mention, each is bigger than a case. It's a big problem, and we make the system hard code where you can't send an each that's bigger to a case to the warehouse management system. So we have a protection layer, so your data always has to be
yeah,
validated. And to your point, a change log, if somebody messed up and something got through, that you can roll those changes back. You wouldn't believe how long it takes. I have a company right now without an integration. Every time we go to update their DIMS, it's at least a 3 to 4 month ordeal for them to manually upload a CSV. So when we have this, when we can almost in real time push that data to you, imagine during peak season where you've got to have that data perfect for your cartonization. We focus on those SKUs.
yeah. So what just for the folks that are not super well versed on carnization, what Titus is talking about when he's talking about these extra features like stackability or composability, nestability is like each of these individual items that you see here, like they get cartonized a certain way, right? But this is just a model of a cartonization where everything can be fit whatever way, right? Okay, cool. So we got 10 more minutes, but what Titus is talking about, sometimes you have items that maybe cannot be laid down, right? And so the cartonization, advanced cartonization systems like Perseus can treat these specific rules. Maybe a certain item can only be fit, this way up. It cannot lay flat, et cetera, et cetera. But the cartonization system only is able to respect these rules if you tell it to, right? And so like you need to be able to say this item is rotatable or is stackable and this other item is not, right? Or maybe an item nests into a different item, right? Or like, what is the space of nesting, right? These are all things that, again, a cartonization system, advanced cartonization system like Perseus is able to work with, but you need to tell it to work with it. Because, and it's always some items yes, some items no, right? And that's when services like what you guys provide, this perfect item master. I mean, it's actually a perfect. You provided me with like a perfect sort of rebuff on my sales goals, right? Like when people are kind of like, yeah, I saw what you're doing on LinkedIn with this Perseus cartonization. I like your little 3D visual there. You know, my thing is I just don't have good data. And then I'm like, that's fine. Like we can call in my buddy Titus. He's gonna measure everything and we're ready to go. He's gonna measure it very quickly. And he's gonna make sure, you know, what you also do, from my understanding, you can also train the people so that once you leave, they also know what to do going forward, right? They
That we
can,
always, yes,
yeah.
that, yeah, like I try not to get a job where they're like, hey, Titus, go scan 500,000 SKUs. Let me teach you to fish. And, it's repeatable, it's cheaper on the customer. We've made the system to where you can put a temp on it and they won't screw it up. And, get this good information. And I'm doing one right now with a company that's got 600,000 SKUs, but they're only selling 7,000 of those during peak. And we're helping them focus on getting those updated. Places that have 500,000 SKUs, we put in rules around what we call synthetic dimensions, so that if they got t-shirts and 80 brands or 80 different styles of that same shirt and we don't have time to get them all, we at least get good dimensions. The number one most common dimension in supply chain is 1 by 1 by 1. That is you'll if you always run a query against that, that's one of my core things I track. How many of those dimensions do you have?
Nice. Nice. Awesome. Well, I could talk to you about cartonization and dimensions and whatnot for the rest of the day, but before my free version of Zoom kicks everyone out of this call, we have like 6 more minutes. Um, and we have quite a few people here. Does anyone want to pose a question to my friend Titus, or to me, or to both? Oh, this is awkward. Everyone's scared of you.
Silence is agreement? No, I
Yeah.
several people I know on this call, so I'm sure I've talked to them about these topics in the past. And one of the spaces that is really interesting with this technology is in the on-demand space, and how you can utilize, on-demand packaging, creating your own boxes with machines. And it gets really interesting in cartonization as well, with those rules being in place, because you can make the perfect box, but if you don't apply the rules, you get a really messed up box that won't fit it when you go to apply those rules on the floor. So
We have a question. We have someone wrote a question, and I think it's Joe Boyle, uh, which I think he's from vMeasure, no?
yeah, Joe's from vMeasure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But his
Typical.
question is, what are typical savings for your solution?
Go ahead, and I'll let you answer, Thomas, first for yours.
Oh, so for us, for B2B, B2B, ours is always depends on your order profile, but generally B2B, if you're shipping like large parcels, pallets, between 10 to 20%. If you're shipping large parcels and pallets and you're just winging it, if this is your order profile, right? Then you're shipping, 15 pound, 30-pound orders across the country, and you are letting people make decisions about what to pack and how to pack it, then you're probably leaving between 10 to 20%. For D2C, between 5 and 10. The complexity of cartonization is generally smaller there because you're shipping, a few items generally in one box. So then the game is like, how do we make the box as small as possible and optimize the fill rate and the dim weight and stuff like that. So there's still some savings, but it's a little bit less than the B2B parcels and pallets. So on average between 5 and 10. But yeah, what we offer is a simulation tool. So if you're curious, if you have a warehouse and you're curious how much we can save you, like send me a CSV and I'll get that back to you very quickly. Um, all right. So Titus, what's sort of your ROI on like these solutions? And that ROI, I think it also kind of depends on like which exact pillar we're talking about, no?
Yeah, it really does. So, typical customer I'm going into with a bad item master and 500,000 SKUs, it's going to look different than one of my customers that's shipping 500 boxes a day. So ours is really variable on that. We usually are always trying to be 100%, payback within just a few months. Like my rate shopping one is the one we see the most crazy numbers on. I got the one account that I was talking about that's over 250,000 this year and savings from just that one side of it. So, but we're always, you know, that's what we call it, land and expand. So where can we get the most savings for you? The back, nothing better. And you've been there, Thomas, too, around, your services are paid for 10x, right? And quickly, and you got a customer for life there. So
Oh
we
yeah,
won't, sometimes we don't even quote a job if they've got everything put together and they're real small and they've got good box sizes, and we say, hey, our services don't make sense for you.
same here.
Happens. I don't mind when that happens. Sometimes I write little reports for them to tell they can give their boss to say, hey, we're doing a good job here, so we don't fit. But
Yeah. For a lot of these sort of like we now have like an offering, right? That's like APIs and that's like, okay, WMSs can use this. And we have like a price per API call or whatever. And that's pretty standard. But then generally for like the full solutions, when we like actually go in and we analyze the operation, we figure out what the integrations need to be. Those come with like custom scopes of work,
yeah,
right? And those are generally like value based, the pricing there, where like, if we save you a lot of money, we want, if the more we save, the more we get to take stuff like that. And so if you win, we win, right? But sometimes it happens like the project doesn't make sense, right? And we're very, very transparent about that, you know.
yeah, same. I've had jobs where they thought they wanted on-demand cart or on-demand packaging. I run their analysis and they need 4 boxes and the same four and they're at 34% air. I'm like, yeah, I don't know that I'd put in an on-demand system if I could get those kind of numbers and make those changes. And hey, here's a box supplier and our job's done for now. But it just depends completely on what companies are looking for and what they need and what's their immediate pain point. Our head of sales always says, look at our chart and point where it hurts like a doctor. And that's where we start.
Sounds good. Alrighty, Titus, we're on time. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time out of your busy, busy weeks to listen to us. This webinar is recorded, and we will be posting, snippets of the recording on LinkedIn. So yeah, if you're interested to chat with Titus, I'll send a meeting summary about him. And if you want to chat with me, you know where to find me. Peace, everyone. Bye.